Legend Story Studios and Flesh and Blood have released print run information for a parade of previous sets. And there's some good information in there, and some not so good. You think this one's gonna be spicy?
Hold on to your butts.
That's what I thought, Sam. When it comes to collectibles, the number of something available on the open market is often fairly important, and unsurprisingly, collectible card games are no exception. And Flesh and Blood doesn't necessarily have the best track record when it comes to releasing print runs and the fallout that happens from that. But to their credit, Legend Story Studios has stayed committed to the idea of giving people who collect their card game the most information possible to give them the best collecting experience that they can. And because of this, at the end of their Collectors Week in 2023, we got new information about previous Flesh and Blood print runs. Now, full disclosure, those of you that know me know I don't really make scripted content. I'll make some notes with some numbers that I need for you guys, and other than that, I just go off. And I found myself recording this video twice now because I have so much to say, it got crazy long. So I'm going to rope you into a multi-part video series. That's right, in part 1 this week, we are going to discuss the unlimited print run of the first 3 sets, or what I'm calling the first block of Flesh and Blood. We're talking all about Welcome to Wraith, Arcane Rising, and Crucible of War, all unlimited. And next week, we're going to dig into what might be the most dramatic video of the series. And I say next week, it's probably just next video. It's going to be the Tales of Aria and Everfest first edition print runs. That video is going to be wild. Make sure you're subbed for that one. It's going to be crazy. So let's get into what is probably the most important block and one of the most important times in Flesh and Blood's history, and the print runs that come along with it. Well, Welcome to Wraith Unlimited comes in, at first the big contender, really no surprise here, but the number is, in my opinion, extremely high. Now, hold all of your comments till I get a chance to explain myself, and we will talk all this through, I promise you. Welcome to Wraith comes in at 248,000 boxes printed, followed by Arcane Rising at 179,000 boxes, and Crucible of War bringing up the caboose at 125,000 boxes. And as someone who was around the Flesh and Blood community and deeply involved in the game and my local scene at the time, and even starting a fledgling YouTube channel, I will be able to provide a little context here. So let's work backwards. Let's talk Crucible of War Unlimited, because this was one of Flesh and Blood's most exciting times. Crucible of War Unlimited was a much needed product, and I will defend the fact that we needed it ASAP and sooner. There were shipping problems with the pandemic. This was no problem. This was not like Legend Story Studios shot or drama or anything like that. It's just things in the world were going on. But I remember Crucible of War being such a fun set and shaking up the competitive meta so heavily that people had to pay sometimes a very fat fee, $50, $60 per Majestic for some of these Crucible of War first edition Majestics. And if you wanted foils, you could chase upwards of $100. I personally remembered seeing Spoils of War going for $100+ in the foil treatment from first edition. So Crucible of War Unlimited hitting the market was much needed. Now, what happened following the Crucible of War hitting the market kind of tells me a little bit about this print run. What happened is Majestic prices immediately began to fall, which is great for the players and great for a growing game. Anyone trying to get involved in the community, albeit expansion sets don't grow the community the best, but still enough people had heard about it and we wanted cards to open and cards to play. They were freaking cool. So this told me that as prices continued to trace down, and the fact that they didn't stop and they kept going and they kept going and they kept going, said to me, oh, maybe at this time we have printed too many boxes. And looking at what we know now, with the fact that the product was readily available at a fair and even cheap price for a long time, and those prices for those Majestics never really seemed to rebound to something stable or in the middle, it does seem like 125,000 boxes may have been too many for the size the community can handle. And when you look at Arcane Rising, you say, oh, that's a much higher print run, but Arcane Rising is a different beast. The Arcane Rising box is designed so much differently than the Crucible of War box that the increased print run kind of begins to make sense. Now, full disclosure, I do believe this again is too many boxes, kind of, but there's a factor here that maybe makes it not too many boxes, maybe makes it kind of spot on in a super weird way. This is back when you used to pull Majestics much more rarely. There were super rares, so there was a rarity slot in between rare and Majestic, and Majestics were hard to pull, and Arcane Rising did house some very powerful Majestics. Like, there were some cards in there that we definitely wanted, and to this day, I mean, look, Command & Conquer just got a crazy reprint that's even more expensive. So we wanted these cards, and it also had the equipment that was highly touted as playable, especially if you were looking to be a competitive Flesh and Blood player in the legendary slot. Legendary equipment was, at the time, roughly 1 per case. It might have been 1.1 or 1.2, something like that, but it was like roughly 1 per case, which meant that if you wanted to play competitive Flesh and Blood, which was really the only option at the time, you had to get your hands on some of this. And with it being 1 per box, if there was going to be enough to suffice the community to play a litany of different heroes, you needed a lot of boxes. And while I get that and I start to understand why, because of the shape of the box, there has to be more, I would have much rather have seen the shape of the box change, and we saw something like that with FaB 2.0, which, for the most part, been an absolute rousing success, been really well done. Just wish we would have maybe done something a little bit sooner. But then you look at the big daddy of them all, the granddaddy, Welcome to Wraith Unlimited, at 248,000 boxes, and I'm going to surprise you here. If you were to say, Josh, you have to play Defense Attorney and pick one of these print runs to defend in the court of law, I'm picking Welcome to Wraith all day long, and here's why. Welcome to Wraith is possibly the best trading card game experience in a box to date. Right now, Welcome to Wraith is not only the perfect way to play Flesh and Blood, but it's the perfect way to get somebody into or introduce them into what is a fantastic card game. The mechanics are great, people seem to like it, and Welcome to Wraith is the epitome of everything Flesh and Blood is meant to be. And because of this, while I still think this is probably too many boxes, it will serve a purpose in time, because as you want to expose your trading card game to more people, more of your friends, more of your community, whatever it might be, the opportunity to have Welcome to Wraith, to give to them, to buy for them, to get them to play is not only enticing, but I think necessary. Now, quick aside here, History Pack kind of throws a whole wrench in this plan. And this is not a fault of Legend Story Studios, and I believe it would be almost impossible. As soon as we pivoted to the History Pack model, which was necessary to spread the game in a litany of different languages, right? A multitude of languages and communities came out of the inception and creation of History Pack. But because of this, it had to be very hard logistically for a company to continue to print the original 3 sets in Unlimited, as well as History Pack, and manage those print runs, as well as whatever new product was currently being printed for a smaller team. That just doesn't seem feasible. So out of printing the Unlimited sets and putting all of that in kind of one box to try to service everybody does make a bit more sense. But why is this a big deal, right? So what? So cards are cheap, so players can get low-cost boxes and cheap Majestics. Why is this a problem? Well, the problem doesn't come from the players that are looking to buy the product. The problem comes with the stores that are looking to carry the product and then get to a point where they're racing so hard to the bottom or competing against such low prices, they can no longer justify to continue to build the community, carry the product, and play the game. And that does not define Flesh and Blood's history, but it has defined portions of Flesh and Blood's history. And with an indie trading card game that is always looking to grow, and new players are, frankly, volatile human beings. They like to move into things and move out of things. You want to give them as little excuse to leave as possible. And when each store would slowly either give up on the game or say, I can't justify ordering this product unless it's a special order. If you ask me for it, I'll buy it for you, but I can't just tie up that money and put it on my shelf because it's not necessarily selling for a profit. I got to use that money for other things and other releases. Then that becomes a problem. And the amount of product that, while we have turned a corner and Welcome to Wraith seems to be at an appropriate price right now, and stores would like to get someone would like to sell some, there was a giant span of time in the middle that would have been extremely difficult for game stores and local communities. And that's really where you're trying to grow Flesh and Blood, especially during this time. This was the pre-Talishar era. So that's the big problem with some of these print runs being, what they are. And now, that doesn't mean that there was anything we could have done. I mean, we could have printed less boxes. I believe if you print less boxes, I think you have more stores stick around, and I think you have a stronger and larger base to grow from. That's not to say Flesh and Blood is not growing today. I believe it is. We're seeing players at the last count in Gem, registered players with 1 XP or more was like 21,000. So that's up from back before Outsiders, well before Outsiders in the Dynasty, which was like 16,000. So yes, Flesh and Blood is 100% growing. I'm just saying this was a way that we could have had maybe more stable growth and more natural and maintained growth throughout the portion of the game. So as I stand, I really think those print runs are high, but let me know what you think. I know the pull rates for the Majestics and the Legendaries, especially for some of these, really change how people feel about that. I would have preferred to change the shape of the box, but I don't really know if that's feasible in the middle of a print run. I want to know what you think in the comment section below. make sure you're subscribed, because next video we are going to talk about the drama-filled section of this release. The one where we talk about, oh, everyone thought Monarch at 125,000 boxes was a lot. Hold my beer. We got something to talk about. So make sure you stick around for that one, guys. Until next time, you all know me. My name is Josh. I hope you recognize me from my main channel over at Hometown TCG. You can visit me at patreon.com/HometownTCG. That Patreon supports Hometown TCG and all the sub-channels, much like this one. Thank you guys again. I think I'm done with announcement stuff. Until next time, I haven't come up with a new outro, so goodbye and stuff. Yeah.